This week, we're talking about how the Earth got to be the way it is today again. We started last week thinking about the fact that the Earth hasn't always looked like this, and that the continents, the big land masses, can move around. This week, we're going to talk about how that happens. So by the end of this lesson, you will understand more about how continents move. Last week, we talked about the idea that the continents can move, but we didn't really get into how it works. So that's what we're going to do this week, and we're going to talk about plate tectonic theory. And what this says is that the outside of the Earth, the crust, is not all one piece. It's broken up into smaller pieces that we call plates. And plates are pushed around by the movement of the liquid rock underneath them. So sometimes plates will run into each other, and sometimes plates will move apart from each other, and sometimes plates will slide alongside each other as they're all pushed and pulled in different directions by the movement of the mantle, the liquid rock underneath. Let me show you an example of how that works.
All right, take a look. I've got two placemats here. Imagine that these are two tectonic plates. So they're two pieces of the Earth's crust. Underneath them, the table in this case, would be magma. So the molten rock that's underneath the crust. Now, these two plates here can do three things. The easiest to picture is they can start close to each other and they can move apart from each other. When that happens, it exposes the magma that's underneath. And that magma cools and hardens to make new rock. This would be an example of a divergent plate boundary. Or they can move towards each other. And when that happens, they buckled up, and then look, this one over here on the left moved on top of this one on the right. So this side, as it gets pushed up, would form a mountain range over here. And this side underneath, this would melt back down into the mantle, and there's a trench down here. This is a convergent plate boundary. And the third option, let me get that placemat flipped around so that it lies back down again. The third option is they could slide past each other, but when they're close, notice how they catch on each other there? They don't go very smoothly. They buckle up and they run into each other sometimes. That makes earthquakes, and that kind of plate boundary where those can happen is called a transform boundary.
So just to review, we can have convergent plate boundaries where two plates move together. Or we can have divergent plate boundaries where two plates move away from each other. And we can have transform boundaries where two plates slide alongside each other. Sometimes we can get volcanoes in places that aren't on the edges of plates. Normally, we would find volcanoes close to plates that are moving towards each other, so close to a convergent boundary. But some places in the mantle, the liquid rock underneath the crust, are hotter than others. And when land is over one of those hot spots, sometimes volcanoes can form. The islands of Hawaii are exactly that kind of volcano. They formed in the middle of a plate because they're on top of a hot spot in the mantle. This week, you're going to use a map to learn about what kinds of things we find at the edges of plates. So go take a look, see what you can figure out, have fun, Be good, be safe, be kind. Don't do anything I wouldn't do.